Welcome to a special bonus episode of the Second Mass Report, a Falling Skies podcast. Tonight, the season finale just aired, so we thought, let's do a quick roundtable. Let's get some initial thoughts before we've had a chance to go back and kind of digest this and analyze things. Frank has a bizarre work schedule, as many of our fans know, so we've been a little bit behind because of that, and he can't even join us tonight because of that. So we have some special guests with me. I'm Rob Southgate. With me is
Martha Southgate.
Yes, my lovely wife, who I've referred to on the show quite a number of times. And also we have another special guest, mystery guest. Who are you?
This is Jesse Jackson from Next Stop Everywhere. You're Southgate Media's one of Southgate Media's Doctor Who podcast.
Yes.
The Southgate family does a very charming one as well. And I'm so happy, you threw it out in our secret, secret lair.
Yeah,
We're
lair. It's a Facebook group, but it's a secret one.
Oh, it sounds cooler as a lair. You're like,
Yeah,
hey, we're thinking about doing this, and so I was thrilled that I had a chance to talk about it, and I got to tell you right up front, I do not watch many shows live. Even if I watch it that same night, I always let it buffer, 10 or 15 minutes, just because, I tend to watch a show and I rewind back and I rewatch something.
Sure.
And I pause, and, we three, among a lot of other people, live tweeted it. So it was a fun experience actually being real time, seeing the show and kind of commenting on it. So great experience.
We do that with a lot of our shows, like Under the Dome, and which is much harder to get through than Falling Skies.
Right.
And we do.
Well, we did it with last year. We did it with Doctor Who.
Once Upon a Time,
And
with
Once
our
Upon a
daughter.
Time, yeah.
Sometimes we're able. Well, this year especially, we'll be able to do that with her now. But yeah, we have a lot of fun doing the live tweeting with people and connecting with
Yes.
fellow fans and just seeing people's reactions to it, and it just cracks me up. So,
But it does make it so that when you do these shows, you don't really have time to analyze. You have to kind of go off the top of your head,
And
like,
kinda
what
go
did
with
I
your
think?
gut,
And what was
yeah.
this? And
Yeah,
so,
and it is interesting. And I don't, I do a Castle podcast as well. And, we don't normally, every once in a while, I'll live tweet that. And I'm usually still about 10 or 15 minutes behind. And, I say, hey, I'm starting a little late. I'm behind the list. But, it's fun. And I think this was a good one to live tweet.
I agree.
Yeah. So for those of you, I'm at Jesse Jackson DFW, and you guys who are regular listeners of the show certainly know the Second Mass Twitter and Rob's. But we had a lot of fun, and I loved that Ken from Chicago, who is one of my Game of Thrones buddies, jumped in, and he was like, just jumping in, and we were all, so we were competing against the VMAs, and I think we held our own.
I
think
do
so too.
Yeah, I definitely do.
I did notice from some of our regulars that we tweet with, some of them weren't there tonight, which either they're going to end up being West Coast, or maybe they're going to do the same thing and watch it later where they can really absorb it.
Yeah.
But you know what? We still had a good conversation going.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
All right. So here's what I want from you guys.
Okay.
Okay. So Jesse, first of all, you do watch the show, right?
I do. I am a big No Wiley fan. I love Moon. I'm drawing like
Bloodgood.
yeah. She was in a show, Daybreak, a few years ago.
Oh, I remember that show. We never watched it.
It is a fun show to watch on DVD because they ended up finishing it like in 13 episodes, and they gave you a satisfying ending.
Oh, cool.
That's where Ty Diggs, keeps doing his life over and over again.
Right.
And it becomes like a video game where he figures out what to do And so when he goes back the next day, like his cell phone runs out of juice. So the next day he goes out, he switches out his battery with his girlfriend's cell phone, so he doesn't run out of battery. But
So
anyway,
it's like Groundhog Day.
yes, it was. And
Except with like modern, because
Yeah,
Groundhog,
right.
exactly,
Groundhog Day, I
yes.
don't even think they had cell phones.
So I really liked her in that, and she also was in Journeyman, and I liked her in that. I'm also a big fan of Sarah Carter's. She was a really interesting character in Smallville. She then played in the James Wood. She was a lawyer. Show Shark. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
She was in that, and so I just think she's a very interesting actress. I think she's has a great charisma, and so I was glad to see her. And I'm also I also really liked Sarah this season. Was really unhappy, and I don't know if because the actress had other stuff to do, or were they doing a storyline, but I really liked that character and thought that it was a shame to lose her. So
Mira
you know what?
Sorvino,
It was
right.
absolutely. I don't believe it was that she had other stuff going, even though she did do a show on the BBC last year. I fully believe it was a plot device.
Yeah.
Because
Because she was always tweeting and
Yeah,
doing
she
it.
was
Like
great.
seemed to really love the fact that she was on the show.
and they killed her off, and that was really what was leading Pope. And I mean, let's get into a little bit.
sure.
We get to the end, and we've got Pope. He shows up again after they blew him up last episode. And, to me, that was a little disappointing. I mean, I thought he was going to come back, but I thought we were going to have a...
I wanted something fun. Give me
yeah.
a showdown.
I wanted, either have a complete showdown, or, when you see Pope killed, have him killed. When they did an explosion in the last episode, I don't know, Martha didn't see it.
That's
And-
the only one I think I missed.
And they're like, "Oh, Pope's dead," and
Right.
you knew if he didn't
Right.
come back, it would have been a disappointment.
Yes.
But to have him come rolling in at the end there and like give up his gun to Tom, I don't know, man. I was
They're
disappointed,
not-
and I like the actor, and
Yeah.
I couldn't stand the death scene.
So what's interesting, and go ahead, Martha, and then
Well,
I'll...
I was just going to say that Pope has never, ever, ever been the guy to back down. He's never, there is no way he was just going to be like, oh, here you go, have my gun. Yeah, just finish me off.
Yeah.
Like, there is just nothing about that rang true for me. I really wish they had him. He's the kind of guy that would go out in a blaze of glory. Like,
Exactly, he should have gone out in a blaze of
and
glory.
I don't like that he just sat down and died. It's so upsetting to me.
Agree, though, with how he came out and he said, it wasn't satisfying like I thought it would be. Having, Anne dead and all that. I thought, that actually is kind of true to character after what we've seen, and it kind of brought the old Pope back a little bit. But the way he went out, very much a chump. I predicted on our last show that Frank and I recorded that I had all sorts of predictions, and almost nothing came true. But I did say that I thought Pope was going to have a big blaze of glory moment with Tom, and I was hoping that what we would see is at the very last second, after whatever resolution, we knew the Queen was going to be defeated. I thought we were going to see another alien race that would be a bigger threat show up, and that's where Pope bites it. Something happens and it's like, wait a minute, Pope bites it, and this series ends on essentially a cliffhanger. That would have been stronger for me.
So this is one of the points of the show where I didn't have a problem with.
The way it
and
wrapped up?
I'm really surprised. Yeah, I was happy that, when I saw Pope, I went, oh no. And I really think that it was not needed, as far as you could have done this earlier.
Yeah.
I think he had his redemption moment, and he had become as good as a hero as he was going to make during the series. He'd done that a couple of times, and if they were going to have him lose, his family now, I think this should have happened 2 or 3 episodes ago, where it could have been something similar.
Yep,
Where
I totally agree.
And I think not have been here. Yeah,
and I think it would have been a very satisfying ending for that character's storyline.
I agree.
To go that.
Well, they also set this season up. I mean, they've been making it seem like the whole thing was going to be the showdown between Tom and Pope.
And that was not.
And it wasn't. It fizzled at the end. And you're right. If they had done it a couple episodes ago and had Pope die a couple episodes ago, some form of redemption, not even a great redemption, maybe not even a redemption, have him actually die a couple episodes ago, I would have been more satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in fact, if there had been a scene where let's rewrite a little bit. That's one of our favorite things to do.
Oh, we love doing that.
He's hurt the way he was in this episode. He runs into Tom, and Tom, instead of saying the war's over, Tom says, I'm tired of killing, period, and I'm saving all my hate and all my anger for the aliens.
Yeah.
And Pope, I thought, it would feel better, or something. They could have written it over and then had him die, and Tom kind of, close his eyes or something, and kind of taken it, as another casualty to the war.
And he would have to say, wait a minute, I got it. So if you're rewriting this scene, he closes Pope's eyes, and as he walks, because he'd have to walk away or turn away, and he says, "You were a hell of a cook."
That
would have been a nice cap to Pope's story.
But they didn't do that. They didn't do anything, and it was really
no. He just sat there
disappointing.
And closed his eyes.
And I was a fan of Pope through most of the series. I loved him. You know why I loved him was because he brought in the energy that the show needed.
Yeah.
He was fun, and he'd come on, and I'd go, fine, okay, I'm not going to fall asleep in this one.
He also made sense. I mean, he started out as kind of a bad guy, but every time he made sense. Like, why are we sitting here? We need to kill these aliens.
Yeah, he would say the obvious. And what the audience was thinking.
Yeah,
and I even agree that I think he had a valid point that Tom would have figured out a way if it had been one of his family members.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And so, I do think, the closest they came to that is, Weaver saying, you absolutely made the right decision, but there was a time when we wouldn't have made that.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think, and once again, that's the story they wanted to tell, but I think it would have, so I think it was valid and it was interesting. I am a little concerned in that, and I don't have a massive TV, but I have a pretty good 50-inch, HD TV, and
that's a good size.
It was hard to see this episode. It was dark.
It was dark.
Although I do have to say,
it was cool.
Yeah, when they showed Washington, it was cool. Not the spider, but
the alien thing was not cool.
Yeah, but you're right. It was a little too dark. The stuff going on in the background, that could have been lit a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you know what? I also thought, by contrast, the Queen Spider was lit way too much.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
And I think
they needed to leave more up to the imagination.
Yes.
And Martha, were you the one that said that Doctor Who did this better?
Oh,
no,
Rob.
I said that.
Rob,
Martha's the one that said it looked like Miss Spider.
Because I've always worked with children.
I have just, for the show, we had just rewatched, we had watched the first, when Donna comes back,
yes.
and they have the spider creature. And it was, once you said that, I went, it's them.
But it was actually better on Doctor Who. I remember the first time I saw that thinking, it wasn't like great effects, but in hindsight, it's like, you know what? It was pretty cool, and it was definitely cooler than this thing.
Yeah. And I love the fact that the show at least tried to, at the ending, stress that mankind, after going through this, would unite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sometimes doubt that. You know, but I like the idea that they tried to say that because of this, you know, we were not worried as much about borders, and that as a people we would move together.
Now, did you guys like that essentially the last 5 years have come down to a revenge story? Uh-oh, I'm getting a look. I'm not even getting the words out of Martha.
Well,
okay, so she
Martha,
didn't. How about you, Jesse?
I'll take it first, and then I want to hear what you say, too, and I want to hear you, Rob. You know, I was a fan of Lost, and I stuck with it the whole time. And I am not someone who bashes the final season.
Neither are we.
You know, I think, you know, it told the character stories I wanted to tell. I do, however, agree that, you know, having the story where Allison Janney, you know, is the mom and we kind of get what happened was odd placement. You know, it seems like that should have been not where it was. So the Queen telling what caused all this, you know, in the last third of the final episode's kind of, huh?
Yeah, right.
It almost would have been better. We don't know why they attacked us, and we'll never know. All we know is that, you know, we defeated them.
Yeah.
I would have so preferred that.
Yeah.
Yes.
We didn't need that exposition, and I certainly didn't need it to be a revenge story, because my reaction was, then why the hell is it Tom? Like, that was like the head of the snake. Really? He was a teacher. He wasn't the head of the snake 1,500 years ago.
Right.
I thought that was weird. Okay, Martha, you go. What did you think of that?
You know, it to me it was just a huge letdown. It felt to me like they just wanted to wrap it up in a nice little package, and it just didn't ring true to the series to me.
Yeah.
And so
that's something that I've talked about with Frank a lot this season. I think this season hasn't rung true to the series.
Absolutely.
I had a great time with it until this season, and I keep running into things that just aren't working for me. And I'd go, why are they doing this? Why did they introduce a new storyline? Well, tonight...
And they introduced so many freaking new characters.
Yeah, tonight, the guy, and I don't remember his name. I get everybody's name wrong. The guy who launched the grenades when they were down in the scene from Aliens. The guy who essentially caused
Marty?
Anne to get hurt. Marty? Is that his name?
Oh, no, he's the one who died in the beginning of the episode.
No, not Marty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was introduced earlier in the season. It made no sense that Weaver would even care about him. This guy shot Weaver. Why did he care? No, the other guy, the guy that's military, whose mom had been a senator. So last episode, he kind of came forward and you go, oh, we've got a new, you know, part of main character, not the main character, but one of the mains, because they're focusing on him, and they did it again tonight, and then they killed him. I didn't care. It's like they set us up. I would have been much happier had they killed a Mason or two. I would have been happier if Tom had died when he killed the Queen. If the thing that was on his hand caused him to die. Okay. That would have been better.
Huh. I don't think I necessarily need...
You guys haven't heard this, but Frank keeps talking about how I must have bloodlust on this show. I have gone through every character that I think should have died. And in this case, I think Tom should have died there. I think Ben should have died in the last episode, even though Ben is he's my favorite Mason. I don't know. Do you like Ben, Jesse?
Yeah, I do. I just
he didn't have a lot to do tonight, but
no, he didn't. And I'm trying to remember the writer. I thought it was Maureen Ryan, but I don't think it was. But you know, someone talked about how the show has changed. And, you know, the first season really was about, you know, it was a very small show about, you know, how do you react and how do you, you know, survive and fight back an alien invasion. And then, Noah Wiley's character, Tom Mason, became, in a lot of ways, you know, the Superman / savior.
Right.
And so it's a very different...
That comes with a producer credit, you know.
Yes, absolutely. And I just don't. I heard this a long time ago. For the longest time in Marvel comic books, Captain America's shield was unbreakable.
Right.
That's all they talked about, unbreakable. And then someone said the material it was made out of. And I think it was Peter David, but it may have been a different comic book writer, said, once you tell me what it's made out of, that's the next step to there will be another substance that can break that substance.
Exactly.
Versus if you just say that it's made of an unbreakable substance and leave it.
Yes.
So, so the aliens, they attacked us.
Yes.
It doesn't matter why, doesn't matter what's going on. I don't, the show right before Falling Skies Last Ship is going through characters. And, they brought in a couple of characters this season, and one of them was a former Israeli, soldier. And spoilers, she gets hurt and dies. And I was like, this was a great character. And true, they haven't lost their stars, but they are showing their consequences. I don't know if Falling Skies ever wanted to be that show. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if...
No, but I wish it had been.
Yeah, maybe that's the fairest thing. But I don't know if their base, if the fans would like that. I mean, I don't know if they would be happy if you lost a Mason.
No.
I do.
I
because
think you're
I think
the only
here
one
at
who
the end,
thinks it would be
no,
good.
I think here at the end it would have made such a strong emotional story. We didn't need to lose a Mason earlier. We needed to lose one here. We needed, because we almost lost Anne, and it was like there's a little impact here, but Anne's the wrong one.
Right.
And her getting pregnant, that was
weird.
Not working for me.
So now there's going to be an alien kid running around?
No, this will be a regular human kid because there's no alien intervention that we know of.
But what happened to the other baby? What was
if
Lexi?
we found out that there was alien intervention on that? But how much better would it have been if it turned out that the questions that were put in everybody's mind during the trial, where they were saying, wait a minute, how did you survive all this? Mm-hmm. What if Tom had turned out to have alien DNA and we find out, okay, she's pregnant and we get the clue, this isn't over.
Right. That's what I was
would have
saying.
been stronger, but they didn't do that at all. They didn't indicate that at all.
I know, but to me, that was
How about the plot device?
That's what I was thinking was going on.
That Tom gave Matt the book. I knew the whole time how the show was going to end, that he gave him the book. We're going to end with Matt writing the story. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was so predictable to me.
It was lame, yeah.
And you know who else got... I'm going to complain about something.
Okay.
Short shrift went to Cochise in this episode. Cochise,
yeah,
one of
where was
arguably
he?
the best characters in the whole series.
Absolutely best character.
He has not been focused on for 3 episodes, and here we are. I thought for sure Cochise was gonna. Maybe Cochise dies. Maybe he dies.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the one that steps forward, and when Tom tries to kill the alien queen thing, he steps forward and takes the bullet, and he's the one that dies at that last moment. Much better.
Yeah.
And do I want him to die? No. I want the Cochise show. I want him to go off and be like Alice. Like he goes off and he works at a diner now. And that would be much more interesting to me. I love Cochise. I don't really want him to be an Alice. He's on the Strain. Did you know that, Jesse?
I did not know that.
Yeah, Doug Jones is on the Strain. And,
nice.
And we interviewed him last year just before that last episode of the Strain that he showed up on. And he was like, I can't tell you what character I am, but I'm on the Strain. And we're like, wow, cool.
Wow, good.
So he was competing with himself the entire season.
Yeah, I was very sad that he did not get any screen time, and he is absolutely my favorite character.
He is. He's the best.
Then Weaver.
You love Weaver?
Weaver gets
Pope
some
was
great
mine.
lines. Oh, well, you know what? Yeah, Pope, but Pope wasn't in the Pope.
Right.
Was not in the.
Weaver had the lines tonight, though.
Yeah, but yeah, normally it's Cochise, Pope, Weaver.
And you're right, Jesse. I like Maggie a lot. Now that's been a thing on here too. Frank doesn't. I have the whole time. But when Hal proposed to her,
oh no,
it was like somebody brought the cheese plate out because I had no interest at that moment. I'm like, no. And the dumb scene just before that when Ben's like, you're going to have to choose. He's like, oh, I made my choice, buddy. Really? we're in the middle of that scene from Aliens. We're walking
Yes.
along these eggs, and
Exactly.
everything's glowing. I don't think that's the conversation you're having. It's just me.
Ridiculous.
And
where was Sigourney Weaver
Yeah.
with
Yes.
the big yellow thing? That's what I wanted to see.
That's Anne. There's
No,
an
she was-
alien in there.
Yeah, she was laying there dying.
Yeah.
yeah.
What were you gonna say, Jesse?
So it also, I was a little surprised at the ending, and I need to rewatch the episode, especially the ending, because the timeline seemed a little strange, and I realize there's some things, you quote unquote hand wave, you just, okay, come on, just let it go with the story.
Right.
But they showed some things that were still pretty tore up, but everyone had nice clothes all of a sudden.
I know.
This is what Martha was complaining about.
And the
She's
whole
like,
place is cleaned up and
everything was
colorful.
bright and colorful.
And I was like, it's been like weeks. I mean, there's no way.
Because, okay, somehow Annie didn't die,
Yeah.
unless she's just a vision in Tom's head. I don't know about that. That's why I need to rewatch that to see.
We're going to talk about that in a second. It was the Kraken, though, that took her and
It fixed
Okay.
her.
fixed her.
Okay, all right. And so, if she is alive, she looks, 6-7 months pregnant, maybe.
No.
Not,
What do you think?
I'd say 5.
No, she was
five,
bumped
6.
out.
5, 6. 5 or 6.
Okay, so that means in that quit of time, they've asked Tom to be president twice.
Yes.
Well, and not
Well, no,
only
I think
that.
they asked him once earlier in the series
Okay, so that's what
because
he was.
he was president for a while. Remember?
Right. Yes.
And I think that he stepped down, and that might have been one that he was referring to. And then I think
Okay.
the implication was after everything was settled, they asked him to be president. And he said no.
Yes.
And the other thing is, she had to have she probably didn't even know she was pregnant until she was close to 3 months. So
So this might have been only like
this could
2 or
only
3
have been
months
2
later.
or 3 months,
Okay.
which I have trouble with.
Yes, it does seem a little bit. I mean, I'm glad I always like the kind of afterwards episodes and
Okay.
scenes.
Where it goes back and kind of shows what happened.
Kind of what happened. That's one of the issues I have with Voyager is, you don't, they have that flash forward that's kind of a dream of what happened, but you don't really know what happened. And I kind of would have liked seen a little bit of, okay, what's happening. And, we see that Maggie's, is there and they seem to be happy together. But yeah, it was, it was just a little weird and a little strange.
Yeah.
I was expecting a little more of a massive battle, and maybe I'm too Game of Thrones-ish, thinking of the big epic battles on Game of Thrones.
But that's what we were waiting for.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah.
So, okay.
Wait, one
go ahead,
second.
Martha.
For me, I felt like this really needed to be 2 hours, and it needed to be a blowout.
It
they
did.
needed to really give the show its
All the
justice.
budget from the season should have gone into this episode.
They did not do the show justice at all with this episode.
Right. It should have been almost like a standalone movie.
Yes.
Where it goes into it and like the battle is epic, the stories are resolved in a big way.
Yeah.
Characters die.
Yes.
And then at the end, because every season ended with I don't think last season did, but a dramatic cliffhanger. That was one of the best parts of this show.
Yes, I agree.
And that's how it should have ended. It
Yes.
should have ended with something where you, at the very last second, you go, what? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
And it's over. And
I
it doesn't ever need to go back, and it would have been so great.
This was really sad for me because I
Yeah.
did enjoy the series and each
fizzled.
season I was like, come on, oh yay, it's coming back,
Yeah.
and we'd watch it, and then this season I was like, what are they doing? I just didn't connect with the season well, and then with this tonight I said, I'm looking at Rob going, how the heck are they wrapping this up in 10 minutes? Like, really? We haven't even done anything yet. And then, it was so
There was a lot of wasted time in
disappointing.
this episode.
Well,
I did not
Tom's
realize.
freaking monologue for 10
I
minutes.
did not realize that it had been extended a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So when Pope is there, and it's like 2 minutes till 10 Dallas time, right? I'm like, really? That's the scene they're going to end on?
Yeah.
And I hit enter on my remote, and okay, it's.
Oh, we did the same thing. We're
Yeah.
like, it goes to 106. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Funny.
Yeah, but
So-
it was to me just really something that could have been amazing.
Yeah.
And they just rushed it, I felt like, and they wanted to just tie it all up, and so they just
Rushed it and
didn't-
tied it all off.
and didn't do it justice. And they
Okay,
yeah,
so-
I don't know.
Jesse, I want to address something you said, though.
Yeah.
And I thought this when we were watching it. I don't think this is right, though. I'm going to put that out there. I think this is us trying to make something out of nothing. But there is a possibility it was a dream at the end. Because that this whole season was a dream.
I actually said that
because
too.
when he flashed to what happened, and then he's like, "Oh, this is how I'll save Anne."
Mm-hmm.
It had him on the beamer. It
Yeah.
showed him in the water,
Yes.
and that whole
It
thing.
didn't
And the
look
way
like
it ended.
like a flashback. Like he was
Right,
just
it didn't.
remembering.
It looked like we're going back to that moment, and we're going to find out this was a dream.
Right.
I don't think that it was, but I actually, and usually, like the dream thing is so pat, but
Yeah.
I kind of wish they had done it, and especially with like his dream is satisfied by Matt, writing the book, and his
Yes.
whole family has survived, and he's got a kid on the way, and it's like this is his happy ending that he would have dreamed.
yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Once again, shocker ending. Maybe we see a little explosion at the moon, and it leaves that thing in your head going, did he crash into the moon and die?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially that scene at the end where they're showing the night sky, the heavens and the
Yes.
stars and everything. It was, and that's why I said I didn't have time to rewatch it, but I know I will and kind of go through this again and see. I'm also looking forward to hearing your fans' feedback and seeing some people that said. What I've read with certain columnists that I enjoy a lot to see what they say.
Yeah. Well, and Frank and I are recording, I think, on Wednesday. So
Okay.
I'm sure we'll have time to, we'll get some feedback. And I know at least Judy, one of our fans, she did a timeline for the show. And she recorded it for us. So we're going to put that on the next episode, and we're going to break through that. But I have a feeling we're going to hear from Judy about what she thought of this final. And I hope so anyway, because I think there's a lot to really talk about with this. It wasn't. I mean, we're sounding disappointed, but it wasn't one of the bad endings where you go, man, this show ended in a turd.
No, it's just that it didn't
live up to expectations.
It didn't do what it could have. It wasn't
Yeah.
what it could have been, and so that's disappointing because the show is capable of so much more.
It is, and they had the actors for it.
Yes.
Yes.
And they had the production. It was beautifully shot.
And David Icke was the showrunner at the end. Now,
Yeah.
here's something Frank and I talked about, and Jesse, you might know this. David Icke came on last season.
Yeah.
Do you think he was really that involved, or do you think because the guy knows how to do a show?
Well, and you wonder if they had the issue of we've written ourselves into a corner,
Yeah.
and then he takes on, so he's trying to, build something from crooked lines.
Well, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
There is another thought, because Martha and I do Chester's Mill Report, where we talk
Right.
about Under the Dome. And in the first season, the showrunner was Brian Michael Bendis, which
Yes.
the whole time I was like, I can't wait for it to get into season 2 when Brian Michael Bendis can do his thing.
yeah,
Right.
that didn't happen.
And then season 2 hit, and it was terrible, and we kept saying, what's going on? And then we found out that he really wasn't there anymore. He had left, but he still gets the producer credit.
Right.
I would love to know if David Icke is in that same position.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because last season was better.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And this one, it was like, what's going on? If you go to his IMDb page, he's not even listed as having been a showrunner on this.
Yeah.
So I wonder, because that guy, he's the one that did the reboot of Battlestar Galactica that is
Right.
amazing.
Absolutely.
So it makes you wonder. I think
Yeah.
this show fell victim to not having a singular voice as a showrunner.
I really agree with that. And I think that you have to have, I think it's so important what story I want to tell.
Yeah.
And I think that story can change sometimes, and it can be, I think...
Well, it can certainly evolve and still work.
Right. Yeah. Person of Interest is a show that started out as a very interesting procedural with, the I think a lot of the Mr. The police guy, the former, CSA guy, his redemption, and it covertly became this huge, battle between two, machines that have gotten, their own, they've become intelligent, and, and it became this science fiction show kind of just covertly, with surprising you. And so I think a show can change, and I think Falling Skies did not have that strong, this is what I want to tell. I think there is certainly pressure. You have an idea of you've got to make your star be a star.
Yes.
And so
I think that was part of the problem with this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. That Tom Mason kind of does a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and the fact that they're the Mason militia and like everybody wants to be president. I'm like, hey, I got another one.
Yeah.
They brought in Jeff Fahey. He had like 3 lines.
Yeah, what was up with that?
Why was he there?
You wonder if, like, is he really a fan of the show?
Yeah.
Or a buddy with somebody?
Yeah, because, that is a wonderful actor. And, kind of wasted to see him in there. I mean, he would have been, you would have had the problem that, if he had been the commander that, with this, the lady that took, was being controlled.
Katie.
If he had that part, you would have not had the romantic thing between him and Hay Weaver. But I mean, I think that would have been a better use of, him as a actor.
Oh yeah.
So it seems, I talked about this before we were recording, and I don't know how late we're going to go, but I wanted to bring up that, and I mean this with a lot of love, but we get Death of Annie, and it was so dark I could barely see it, and I was sharing with you guys, and for those of you that have ever watched Josh Whedon's Angel will know what I'm talking about. In the very final episode of Angel, Amy Acker is playing a character, Elora, and she used to be Fred, and Fred was the character, and Fred was taken over and died by this ancient demon, Illyria. If you watch the show, it makes sense. And
makes sense to me. I've seen Buffy. So.
Yes. And so Wesley was in love with Fred. And so at one point, the Illyria changes her body to look like Fred, which is Amy Acker without makeup. And, he says, never do that again. That's a horrible lie. Don't ever lie to me again. And so toward the middle of the episode, he is mortally wounded, and Illyria shows up in time to kill the people that hurt him, but not in time to save him. And she says, do you want me to lie to you now? And he says, yes. And she becomes the character Fred. And he, says, there's my girl. And she starts crying, and I am tearing up as I tell the story. I cry every time that happens, much like when I watch Vincent and the Doctor.
Oh,
you're right.
Yes.
And so
right in the heart.
If they were going to take Annie away from us or going to have a death, I want that payoff. I want something that is emotionally chilling.
Yes.
And that, that I go, gosh, that was heartbreaking. I hate them, but at the same time, I love them because I know they did it that well.
Once again, she should have died.
Yeah.
Well,
she should have. But you're
she
right.
should
It didn't
have
have the
died
weight
well.
when it was happening.
Yes.
she wasn't dying well. It wasn't. It wasn't.
We
what,
also
like,
should have gotten the feels when Pope died.
Right.
And I think that's why we're saying it, because he was such a great character.
And there should have been chemistry between him and Tom. Like
well, there
should
was
have,
until now.
Yeah.
I'm in this scene. There should have been chemistry so that you felt like you would feel. I mean, see, I didn't feel anything. I just sat there going, "There's no tension. There's no not like." He could have, Pope could have picked the gun up and somebody could have come from behind and shot him or something, like something dramatic. There was nothing. It was just nothing. Okay, I have a really off topic. Well, it's not off topic because it's from the show, but a few episodes ago, Tom is at the farm with that family.
Yeah.
Yes.
That family went through the entire freaking war without even knowing they were in the war. I mean,
Right.
The kids were able to live
I've
this
complained about
idyllic
this a
life.
lot.
Okay, but hang on. So all they had to do was hold out for a couple more weeks.
All right.
Yeah.
And they got to live their entire existence in that war without having to experience any of it.
Yeah.
And I think, first off, I really liked that episode.
No,
and I like the
hated
idea
that one.
I didn't.
no.
You hated that
I
episode?
did.
I like the idea that, Tom saying, I know what we're fighting for now.
Yeah.
I also, maybe that's the explanation of how, there is clothes out there somewhere,
Sure.
rural areas, there's this really small retail area. Or maybe they didn't bomb one of
the malls.
Yeah, one of the Men's Warehouse.
Men's Warehouse.
Jerry,
It was like medieval Men's Warehouse. They weren't dressed like.
Yeah.
It was weird. Like they didn't really look.
They found a Zare that was
timely.
untouched from time.
Zare.
Okay,
How
I'll
old
tell you,
are you?
I'll tell you why I didn't like the episode.
Which episode?
The one we just talked about.
Okay.
The one that we just
The
said.
farmhouse?
The farmhouse.
Okay.
It's not that I didn't like the episode. It was, and this is what I've complained about, it was the timing. That episode should have happened last season.
Yes, exactly.
That should have
I
happened
agree.
before and given motivation. Here it was like, why are we wasting our time with this?
Yeah.
It was right after the
Right
Pope
before
explosion.
it's supposed to end.
And then it's like, what? I don't get it. And I knew that those
agree.
characters weren't going to resurface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is just a waste of time.
I agree. But I did
Okay,
like
it was
the
a story
episode.
that should be
That's
told.
fair enough.
Yeah. But I did still like the episode, and I liked the fact that there were people that were sort of allowed to live in ignorance in a way, like allowed to have that innocence because of people like Tom and his family that were fighting for them. Not unlike when our soldiers go to war and we sit over here going, what? I don't know. What's the big deal? Because we get to live in that ignorance because they're willing to fight for us. So I thought that was, I liked that he had somewhere to go that was so dramatically different than what he's been living that he could look at it and go, I can't believe you guys, like they were, here's Tom as a huge survivor, right? But look at that family, what they were able to accomplish in the middle of all of that. Like, that's crazy that they were able to keep their life intact for the most part, But I liked that he sort of had that moment where he could go back and see what it used to be like because when you're
it's kind of like on Survivor
Yes.
when they get their notes from home and they get I'm all motivated because I got that little glimpse. Okay, I can buy that. It just happened in the wrong spot for me.
It happened in the wrong season.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. But it was still an important thing and I did sit there this whole episode going, oh my gosh, I hope those stupid people didn't destroy their lives. They only had to hold on a couple more weeks.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's great. Yeah. So I think I don't know if I'd say they stuck the landing, but I certainly think they, wrap things up well enough.
Yeah, I think if you want to use that analogy, they may have stuck the landing, but they didn't get a high score on it.
Right.
But it's all right. I mean, I'm not walking away from it going, ugh. I'm
No.
more
It's
walking
not
away
the
going,
Dexter finale.
yeah, the Dexter finale that everybody hates so much.
The Dexter finale made me
or
want...
Sopranos that make everybody angry.
The Sopranos one didn't make me angry, but the Dexter one made me want to unwatch
Yeah.
everything I'd ever seen. I was like, don't make me hate this show.
Yeah.
Because that show was so fun for so many seasons.
Yeah.
And that last season
Yeah, this wasn't that.
was a train wreck. No, this does
This was
not
just
even
a little,
come close to that.
It just had a little fizzle to it.
It was just that it could have been so much better.
Right. Well, and it closed the door. Frank and I have talked about how, with the fan support and all that, eventually you could see them taking this story and reimagining it and making a movie out of it or something, because there is that potential. This kind of closed the door on it where I'm like, if they do that, it's got to be a reboot because it's done.
Yeah.
And anything else is going to feel lame.
And I know that when we were live tweeting, there were people who were unhappy with the way that the Queen died, which was ridiculous. Okay, but when she died though, and then everything started bursting, blowing
up. What was that?
No, but you know what? I was okay with that because I thought, well, that would, she's the Queen, and it was this thing, and to me, I could suspend belief enough to go, yeah, I could totally. They just had to kill her, but she wouldn't have given Tom access to herself.
Right, especially to monologue.
And she had no bodyguards. There was
That's
nobody.
why the Joker loses every time.
Yeah. See?
Yes.
So
that didn't make any sense to me that she would come out and stand before him and be vulnerable.
Right.
And it made
But
that
she was
did
inviting
not,
him to her tea party.
I know. See, that's why it reminded me of the kids' books.
Yes.
But but it just didn't ring true for me on that.
So, Jesse, how badly did you want, when he moved the branches and they saw the Lincoln head, that to be an ape head?
I did think about that. I thought about that, and I smiled that. And it was kind of interesting to see the view from the March on Washington, the scene, that, and
yes.
where we've seen so many iconic things.
And you saw they were rebuilding the Washington Monument back there, too.
And I thought it was a little interesting when they're talking about that, we're all going to be, well, there used to be a place called America.
Right.
It's like, shh, no, we aren't supposed to be focusing on that. So
Right.
Yes.
I'm surprised we didn't see a McDonald's getting built in the background.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
We're back.
We are back.
Monsanto back there planting seeds.
At which point I shoot myself in the head.
Right.
Yeah.
You joined Pope on the beach.
But I thought that it was really cool seeing DC and all of the destruction and what it looked like. To me that was really
that was
cool.
kind of the best visual going on.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go very far with Anne to get to the water.
Yeah.
No,
he didn't. That's a good point.
But anyway, that's, splitting hairs.
Yeah. All right. I want to end it because I'm going to edit this and actually put it on tonight.
Yay.
Okay. And you still have to talk about it with Frank at some point. So
yes,
you need
So,
to
Jesse,
leave some
thank you
things.
so very much for joining us. This was fun.
Always a joy. We talk a lot via email, but we don't get to talk a lot in person.
No, and it's so much fun.
This is so much fun. And Martha, as always, you are a joy to visit with.
Oh,
and I appreciate everything you do for all of us in the podcast family.
Thank
you. It's so... it was fun live tweeting. It was fun kind of doing a quick roundtable. And
and I don't think we've done one since the day we met, since the first.
Yes, I don't think so either.
And that was a long time, but you weren't even on our network at that point.
Right.
You were doing a tour of the cons with us.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
Jesse,
looking forward to it.
I want you to also plug your new
you got to plug
show.
all your shows.
Yes. So, this has been, I do Next Stop Everywhere. Charles and I do a Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of the great moments in my podcasting life is when Rob emailed me and said, "Hey, we want to do a Doctor Who podcast, and we think you'd be perfect to lead it." And so we just hit over a year, and we have had a blast.
And it's such a great show.
Thank
tell
you.
everybody to listen to it.
Yeah, and Charles and I have we've had so many people guest star and talk episodes, and so we're excited about the new season. But as long as I've been podcasting, I have secretly wanted to do a Bruce Springsteen podcast, and my vision was me having different Springsteen fans on and just having a conversation about Bruce and his music and the experiences. And Dave, who does the 80s Reboot show, was wanting to take a little break, and he said, "Hey, does anyone have any ideas that we could keep the 80s podcast going, but I could just be a guest?" People who don't podcast, this sounds like it's not a lot of work, but it actually is, and it certainly is not going in the field baling hay work, but there is amount of prep work you have to do, and kind of, okay, what's going to be our agenda, and what are we going to talk about, and what are we going to do? We just sound unorganized, and so
we sound like we just
I suggested to Dave a couple of things, and we've recorded a Stephen King Books of the 80s, which I think is going to come out soon, and this week we're going to record Stephen King in the 80s movies.
Fun.
And one of the things was, I said, well, why don't I get a couple of fellow Bruce fans and we'll talk about Springsteen in the 80s. And so we did. We recorded Tony, who's from the UK, and Colleen, who's there in Chicago with you guys, and me, all talked about the 4 albums Bruce released in the 80s. And I made the joke, this is a pilot for the Springsteen podcast I want to do. And Rob immediately said, I think it's a great idea, do it.
Yeah.
So it's called Set Lusting Bruce. And Rob is
a good name.
Yeah, Rob is going to interview me in the next couple of days, and I'm going to tell where I got the thing from. But yes, and it is going to be. It will be shortly. I've already got 4 or 5 people reaching out to me saying, "I want to be on the show. I want to be on the show."
Oh, that's awesome.
And we've got one for you too, if we can get him to do it.
Yeah.
So,
someone who followed him a lot, like
especially
you did.
in the 80s, he followed him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So. Matt Donnelly from Penn Sunday School's podcast has already said if he can make his schedule, he'd like to be on there.
Awesome.
Great. Alton Brock, who has written a novel, Jungle Land, which one of the characters, it goes back to the 80s when that was on.
Cool.
I'm already scheduled to talk to him. And so, so this is exciting, and I'm hoping that we get a lot of new listeners through it.
Awesome.
Oh, I think you will.
And you also, what other ones do you do? A castle one?
Yeah, you do Storming the Castle.
We'll let him. Yeah. Go
So
ahead.
with Aaron.
Plug it all.
Yes. Yes, we do that. And
that's on a different. Now, what network is that on?
That is, we kind of started that our own. So it's the JKL Media podcast.
There you go. You want to plug it all. Plug it all.
And then and I have been a member of the Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV podcast. They do a Small Council Game of Thrones podcast. And we just found out that the guys who do Academy of Thrones, there are 2 guys from Israel that do a series of YouTube videos where they discuss Game of Thrones and the historical significance, and then they make predictions based on history. We've loved their videos, and we told them, and so they're we've worked out a timeline of they're in Israel and we're in the U.S. and we're going to interview them.
Oh, that's fun.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's fun. So
I love it.
But I just I love listening to you guys, and I tell everyone the same time that Cuckoo for Who is just so funny and so sweet, and Molly is really good at this.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, it's and you would think she would be, because she has 2 parents that do it. My son is started in a call center, and he's now doing customer service work.
Excellent.
And he jokes all the time that, I was 6 weeks old when my dad got his first job in a call center, so I grew up in this kind of environment. So at it. So she's great at it, and that is truly, I don't listen till after I've recorded mine.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be influenced, but then I
Right.
love hearing y'all's take on the shows.
Thank you. Yes, we love you guys too.
Yeah, and we can't wait for the new season to start.
Yes, we're
So
very
excited.
excited.
We are just debating on who's Macy Williams going to be, and it's just wonderful. So great stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Well, cool.
Well,
and
thank you so much for joining us.
yes, thank you so much, Jesse. And Martha, thank you for joining in on the roundtable tonight.
You're welcome.
And for the listeners, first of all, you will get the 2 episodes with Frank and I. There's the last episode and our episode about the final. That should all be within this week that everything is recorded and done, hopefully, barring any more trouble with Frank's schedule. And you can find past episodes of this on our website, which is southgatemediagroup.com. And it's getting a complete overhaul. So, you know what? Check back in a couple of weeks if you are somebody who's gone to it and said, yeah, the site's okay. It's going to be really good in a couple of weeks. So, and all the episodes will be available on there and available for download as well, which makes it easier.
Yay!
Yes. So that's it. Thank you again for listening. I'm not going to do Frank's ending. He has his own special ending he likes to do. I'm just going to say thank you to you guys. And for those of you fans, we will be talking to you again this week.